Week 4 is upon us, and I'm going to give you a name of a kicker that had more points than the wide receiver 4 in half-point formats. That's why kickers matter. That's why you need this video to help you pick the right kickers to set your winning lineup. Let's get to it right now. What's going on, everybody? My name is Michael Hoff. This is the Face Off Sports Network, and we are giving you today kicker, streamers, and rankings. That's right. Listen, if they count towards your final score, they matter. If you lose by a few points, kickers matter. If you win by a few points, they matter. So this is a very important video. I will also tell you to go along with this. There is a DST video, a very popular one that always hits on this channel. Definitely check that out. Hit the like button, all that fun stuff. If you have any questions about kickers, we'll get into it here. Just fire it into the comments. I got you. But here we go. Let's start with this, though. Why do kickers matter? This is where I started with at the top with. In half-point formats in Week 3, Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, by the way, is rostered in only 59% of leagues, he had more points in half-point formats than Garrett Wilson, who finished as a wide receiver 4. So that's what you're not realizing when you're saying, when you're going with the sheep that say kickers are dumb, kickers should be abolished, we don't like them. If they're in your league, they matter, they score points. We're in a business where the most points win. So that's why kickers matter. If we're recapping from last week, let's get into this. We'll get into the pretty good and the super ugly. We had Spencer Shrader getting us 11 points. We also had Matt Prater getting us, Matt Prater got us 7 points. Shrader got us 11 points. But it was Parker Romo who truly junk punched all of us during the 1 o'clock games. After scoring 18 points just the week prior, he missed 2 field goals and then put up 0 points against a very favorable Carolina Panthers opponent. I hate it here. Parker Romo will not make it in this video. You can damn near believe that. He's got to win his way back into my heart and into yours, hopefully. But all seriousness, let's get into our actual streamers. And if I'm going to talk about streamers, the first guy I'm going to mention is going to be Spencer Shrader of the undefeated Indianapolis Colts. By the way, these streamers are all players that are rostered in less than 50% of sleeper leagues. So Spencer Shrader of the Indianapolis Colts going up against the Rams. Like, I find it crazy that the number 1 kicker in fantasy football, which that is Spencer Shrader, is only rostered in 35% of leagues. 35% of leagues. And he's the number 1 kicker in fantasy football right now. He's also the only kicker with multiple games with 15 or more points so far this season. So that's something else to keep in mind when we're talking about Spencer Shrader. Along with being tied for most field goal attempts as well, he's also one of 5 kickers with double-digit field goal attempts. So, you're getting a lot of production here. Like, what do we talk about when we talk about all these other skill position players? We talk about running backs, talk about wide receivers, tight ends. What matters? Opportunity. We're getting a ton of opportunity with Spencer Shrader, the number 1 kicker in fantasy football, only rostered in 35% of leagues. I'll just keep saying it until the percentage goes up. It goes up against the Rams, like I said, so it's at the Rams, so we know we got a roof over our head, so we know we don't got to worry about weather. The Rams allowed just 3 points last week, but that was, by the way, against an Eagles defense that has only been attempting 1 field goal on a per-game basis. So it shouldn't come as a complete shock that the Rams didn't allow a ton of points to the kicking position. Prior to that game, in the first 2 weeks, the Rams were allowing the second most points to the position. So again, Spencer Shrader, for whatever reason, is still out there, not being used. And I think it's somebody who you can clearly take advantage of. I'll keep pounding that table until you guys put him over 50%. Then I'll stop mentioning him. If I can go into the next player, he's in our thumbnail. He's looking yoked. And his name is Joey Sly of the Tennessee Titans. Listen, perhaps some people are too hyper focused on the Titans offense, having the second fewest yards on a per game basis. But to me, Joey Sly, a lot like Spencer Shrader, is criminally underowned. Why do I mention that? Sly is right behind Shrader. He is the second highest scoring kicker in fantasy football formats. He's just 1 point behind Shrader, too. You want to know how many leagues he's rostered in? Rostered in 10% of leagues. What are we doing? Why are we not taking advantage of this? So, Joey Sly is a player for me you pick up. Listen, if the offense gets better, it could be even better for him. And this goes to show you, too, by the way, a lot of people always just say, well, I just go to the highest over under, or I just go to the team that scores the most points. And this is what I do, yada, yada, yada. Joey Sly on the Tennessee Titans, he's not that guy. The Tennessee Titans stink offensively. I mean, they got their head coach getting booed when he's walking off the field. Be that as it may, Sly's been also good out of the gates in his career. September is when he has the highest field goal percentage of his entire career, which is 86.8%. And here's what I would tell you. If you go ahead, like I mentioned, Spencer Shrader, and you want the number one kicker, if you go ahead and get him, and if somebody's ahead of the curve, if they get him, then you know what? Then you get Joey Sly. I like this matchup against the Texans too. The Titans and the Colts, by the way, in terms of the Shrader Sly thing, they are tied for first in the NFL with 4 field goal attempts on a per game basis. So to me, I like this matchup a lot. I think, I know Brian Callahan mercifully gave up play calling. So we'll see what that does. But I still think that we're going to see Joey Sly be one of the top kickers on the week, especially if you're streaming at the position. Again, second in points scored, only rostered in 10% of leagues. If I'm going to go to my third option before I go into my rankings, before I go into my tiers, yeah, all right, spoiler alert, there's a little niner here. And yeah, I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with Eddie Pinheiro of the San Francisco 49ers. And listen, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, he's only rostered in 2% of leagues. Let's be honest with one another, right? Let's do this. The only reason why we scoffed at kickers in San Francisco going into this year was because we couldn't trust Jake Moody. Well, now we got Eddie Pinheiro, who is one of the most accurate kickers in football. Look it up. It's true. It's there. So now we got Eddie Pinheiro there. He's looking good right now. He helped win the game for the 49ers to help them stay undefeated. Like I said, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this is the other thing, too. Since joining the 49ers, because week 1 was Jake Moody going up against the Seahawks. He was unceremoniously let go. They brought in Pinheiro. In those last 2 weeks, Pinheiro has been the 9th best kicker in fantasy football. He's put up 20 points. So right away, when you have a reliable kicker in an offense, listen, we talk about taking advantage of Kyle Shanahan's expertise in terms of fantasy football. You got to get the running back. You got to get the wide receivers. You got to get the tight ends, the quarterback whisperer. Kicker's really no different. I know it's not cool to talk about it. It's not something you're going to sit down at the lunch table or the water cooler and talk to your friends about because they're going to say that guy's weird and they're going to walk away from you. But the same thing applies to kickers, man. So Eddie Pinheiro is that guy. While he has only played in 2 games, he's also had 2 field goal attempts of 40 yards or more. And to give you some perspective on that, there's only 3 kickers on the year that have attempted 3. So he's getting opportunities from afar as well. So if you're in one of those formats that's going to award you, long kicks, Eddie Pinheiro could be your guy. Again, rostered in 2% of leagues. So there are the streamers: Shrader, Sly, Pinheiro. They will all end up in my top 12 rankings, which we will do right now. And with that, we will go into tier 1. Tier 1 is going to be the likes of Brandon Aubrey, Tyler Snoopaloop, and Spencer Shrader. Now, Brandon Aubrey going up against Green Bay Packers, currently 3rd among kickers on points per game with 12.7. So you like to see that from Brandon Aubrey. He's had 2 games with double-digit points, and the 1 week that he didn't have double-digit points, He had 8 points. So that's not a terrible thing. Keep in mind, by the way, when at home, Aubrey has been exceptional at home. In 19 home games in his career, that's including the playoff game, Aubrey has scored 10 or more points in 63% of his games. It's pretty damn good. And in those games at home, he has averaged 12 points per game. So to me, are they going to hurt with CD? Sure. The defense sinks? Sure. But Brandon Aubrey is still going to put up points. He's in my tier one. He's my top kicker on the week. Again, getting into number two, I already mentioned it. Snoop-a-loop, say it from the rooftop. Ravens are going to be at the Chiefs. If you're in a spot where you get extra points for long kicks, like I was talking about earlier with Eddie Pinheiro, Loop is one of those three kickers to have a league high 3 kick attempts of 40 yards or more. By the way, he's converted them all. So I like that as well. Also, among those kickers, those three, Snoop-a-loop. Yes, I'm going to keep calling him Snoop-a-loop because it just sounds cool. He's the only one of those kickers to have double-digit extra point attempts. So not only is he getting the field goal attempts, he's obviously getting the extra points because he's in the Ravens offense, despite whatever happened on Monday Night Football. So I love it. So he's my number two. The last guy in my tier one is Spencer Shrader. Again, I talked about him a lot. CC the notes, go back to the top. I will have timestamps in here, but go back and listen. He's one of my streamers because, again, the number one kicker in fantasy football is criminally under-owned. After that, let's go into tier two. Tier two, we're going with Cameron Dicker, the kicker. He's the number 4 kicker on the week. The Chargers at the New York Football Giants. Understandably so. Everybody's very excited about Jackson Dart. Shit, I'm excited about Jackson Dart. But the Giants only allowed 3 points to kickers in week 1. So that's why, like, if you look at the points allowed to kickers, you might be like, well, they didn't allow a lot. Well, after week 1, in those 2 weeks after, the G-men allowed an average of 17.5 points per game to kickers. 17.5 points per game to kickers in weeks 2 and weeks 3. That sounds very good for Cameron Dicker, the kicker, who, by the way, is the 10th best kicker in fantasy football. So I will take full advantage of that. Listen, this Giants defense is tough, but Cameron Dicker's still going to get his points because the Chargers offense is still the Chargers offense. So give me Cameron Dicker here in my tier 2 as my 4th ranked kicker. My 5th ranked kicker is going to be Matt Prater of the Buffalo Bills going up against the New Orleans Saints. Prater is currently tied for 4th amongst kickers with 10.7 points on a per game basis. And it's the New Orleans Saints. I expect kicks to be made here. It's the Bills offense. They're going to, as long as the kicker's there, we knew this last year with Tyler Bass. The only reason why we know with Matt Prater this year is because Tyler Bass is out with an injury right now. For now, he'll be back. And by the way, once that happens, Matt Prater will not be on the streets for long. You see it's like a revolving door. People always taking kickers out, putting new kickers in. Matt Prater will not be out of work for long. I mean, Young Ho Koo just got picked up by the Giants today, so that gives you all you need to know. Rounding out tier 2, and then we'll get into tier 3. It's going to be Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Chris Boswell for me, listen, the Vikings only allowed 5 points to kickers last week, but that was against the Bengals team. I mean, we all saw that. The Bengals DST, which again, another segue over to the DST video, because I believe our own Pete Nova had the Vikings defense ranked 2 last week. But so they only allowed 5 points to kickers last week. But again, it's against the Bengals offense that couldn't get out of their own way. While Boswell isn't in tier 1 here, I don't want people to freak out. I do expect a bounce back. He only scored 3 points in week 3. The last time that Chris Boswell scored 3 points or less in fantasy football, besides week 3 of this year, you'd have to go back to December of 2023. So that's how much I believe in Boswell. I feel he's going to hit his kicks here. So I like him to bounce back from last week. Last week is not something to take serious. If you already have Boswell, don't worry about it. Start Boswell with confidence. Again, He's in my tier 2, but it's also competition at the position. There's certain guys and certain matchups I like more. So start Boswell with confidence. Getting into tier 3 of our kickers, we're going to go to Joey Sly, who, by the way, again, this sucker will be timestamped. Go ahead, go to the timestamps, go to my streamers, because Joey Sly, your number 2 kicker, is available in way too many leagues, at least on Sleeper. Maybe they're sleeping on Sleeper. I don't know. Maybe I need to use ESPN or CBS. I hate ESPN. Sleeper, whatever. Be that as it may, he's rostered in only like 10% of leagues. This is criminal as far as I'm concerned. Go back to my streamer section. Check that out again. This will be timestamped in the comments. Also, feel free to leave any comments. Staying in the AFC South, Kayami Fairbairn is my next pick. He's my 8th ranked kicker. The Texans are going up against the Titans, so Sly and Fairbairn will be on opposite sides there this weekend. Fairbairn had a tough week last week because he had just 4 points. Better days should be ahead for this Texans kicker, though. He's had his luck against the Titans. In the last 6 matchups, Fairbairn has averaged 10 or more points against the Tennessee Titans. So I like that for Fairbairn to bounce back. Finishing in the neighborhood of somewhere towards the middle of this top 12 is sustainable given the fact that he's averaged 10 or more points. That's kind of like what we're talking about here. When we're talking about 7, 8, 9 kickers, we're getting into that neighborhood of 10 or less points, but still respectable, So I do expect Fairbairn to bounce back. I like him in this matchup. The last kicker we're going to put on this list, we did mention his opponent as the number 1 ranked kicker. The number 9 ranked kicker is Brandon McManus of the Green Bay Packers. They're going to be at the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys have allowed an average of 9.3 points on a per game basis to the kicking position. Here's kind of how I view this. I view this as, and listen, sometimes you need numbers. Sometimes you need injury news. Sometimes you just go with your gut. And to me, this is a Green Bay Packers team that killed a lot of survivor pools and got embarrassed, quite frankly, in my opinion, going up against the Cleveland Browns last week. They're going to want to bounce back. It's a Dallas Cowboys offense that doesn't have CD Lamb. The Green Bay Packers went from being Super Bowl favorites to some, Matt LaFleur getting asked about undefeated seasons, to losing to the Browns. They're going to want to come out. They're going to want to play hard. When you think of those things, you don't always think of it resonating towards a kicker. But in this particular aspect, I will help you with that. I do think that it helps the kicker. So give me Brandon McManus as my 9th ranked kicker. I do think that he gets a slew of points here, at least enough to fill in that ninth ranked kicker, rounding out my 3rd tier. Again, that 3rd tier was Joey Sly, ranked 7th, Kami Fairbairn, ranked 8th, and then 9th, Brandon McManus. If we go into my last tier 4, 10, 11, 12. So it's a clean 3-3-3 sweep, 3-3-3 sweep, whatever. Who cares? Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Listen, Chase McLaughlin is coming off of a game in which he had 20 fantasy points, only the 2nd kicker to do that so far this year. He is going up against the Eagles, though. That's why I have him ranked a little bit lower. This isn't a significant drop-off, though. Don't take it too serious. Don't act like this is like a serious demotion for McLaughlin. I mean, kickers finishing at the back end of the top 12 are usually averaging around 9.5 points or so. So it's not crazy to say he's going to finish back here at 10. It's not me saying he's going to have 2 or 3 points. So don't overreact. If you have Chase McLaughlin, I only say that because he's rostered in a lot of leagues. Do not panic. Start him, put him out there. Don't ask me, do I drop Chase McLaughlin? No, you don't. You keep him, you hang on to him, you love him, you appreciate him like you should any other fantasy football player that helps you win. Going into the next part of my tier 4, we're going to go with Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs. The Ravens have allowed at least 9 points to kickers in 2 of their first 3 games. I like Butker in this matchup to finish inside the top 12, as Butker has had 9 field goal attempts. By the way, that's just behind Joey Sly and then Shrader, who we've mentioned numerous times, in terms of top of the league with field goal attempts. Those guys have 12 field goal attempts. Harrison Butker has 9. We know that the Kansas City Chiefs offense is not perfect. We've seen that way too much lately. So I expect Butker to benefit from that. And rounding out the top 12, again, I'll timestamp it. Go back to the streamer part of this, the back end of the streamers. It was Eddie Pinheiro of the San Francisco 49ers. I've got him on the back end of my top 12. Again, if there's not a Jake Moody missing 1,000 field goals, let's not act like we didn't love the potential of a kicker in San Francisco, because we knew with Kyle Shanahan, regardless of if it's Jimmy Garoppolo, regardless of if it's Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, the man on the goddamn moon, we knew points were coming, and therefore the kicker benefits. So that's it. So those are your top 12 rankings. Those are your 3 streamers. Again, criminally under-owned streamers. So go back and watch that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll be more than happy to help you out. Please like this video. It helps me out immensely. Share it with anybody that you're not in a league with. But until next time, folks, stay